My husband works 12-hour shifts. Anything over 10 on a normal 40-hour work week is double time, and therefore he's been working 12-hour shifts 5 days a week to save money. Now for the backstory. We have a 12-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 4-month-old. When I was 6 months pregnant, the apartment building we were living in was condemned, mold and mice issue that we didn't know about due to having 3 cats and the mold not being visible. We were put up in a hotel until about a week before my due date, during which time we searched for housing and found nothing. We ended up having to stay with my mom. I had my daughter a week later, and my husband found us a place 2 days later. Now, it's important to note that I begged him to just let us stay at my mom's house when he told me where he got us a place. For one, he works all the time and he wasn't able to take time off, so I wouldn't have help. And for two, the school district in the area he was moving us to is partial remote learning, short staffing, so the kids were only going to be at school twice a week and the rest at home because it rotated between kids. So not only was I going to be caring for a newborn alone, but I would also have to deal with schooling my other children, one who has a heavy IEP and strong learning disabilities, and I knew I would not mentally have the bandwidth to do this. But my husband insisted because he didn't want to live with my mom, and because the place he found us was in the house next to his best friend. He used the excuse that if I needed anyone, his buddy's wife was right there and I could have play dates because she has 5 kids. I wasn't interested in any of this, but he still insisted and made me feel like I was being irrational for wanting to give up a housing opportunity to stay at my mother's. But regardless, we have 5 people now living in a male 2-bedroom tiny apartment, paying $1,600 a month with nothing included. It's so small that we can't even fit a dining room table for the kids to eat, and they instead eat on the couch, which doubles into my pull-out bed. Since we moved here, his friend and his kids are always here. Since the day after we moved in here, those kids have been banging on my door 3 to 4 times a day, looking for my kids and waking up the baby every single day. Every night when my husband gets out of work, his buddy calls him outside at least twice, going on store runs, dump runs, or just to hang out for no less than 2 hours. They are constantly loud, and his buddy is always shooting off guns in the yard, as well as us being right on a river, so I don't even trust my kids going outdoors. I've brought up all of these points several times. I'm always met with a babe, it'll all be fine, I'm saving money, we won't be here forever. That's it. I had 0 time to recover from birth, and I'm so exhausted, mentally and physically, that I am having serious doubts about my marriage because of the constant resentment. 14 years, and I've never felt like this before. And last night, I ended up snapping because I needed a break. I passed the baby off to my husband, and I went outside to take a breather and be alone. Literally the only place that's possible. And as soon as I walked outside, his friend saw me and walked over to talk to me and asked where my husband was because he needed to run to the store and wanted to know if he wanted to go. My husband ended up going. I got a total of maybe 30 seconds of alone time. So I lost it, and I told him he had 2 choices. Get us the frick out of here because my mental well-being is at stake, or I was going back to my mom's. He says he doesn't understand what I expect him to do because there's nothing available. I told him to figure it the frick out. Now he says I'm putting too much pressure on him because he's stressed too, and apparently it's all he thinks about. But I can't do this anymore. Am I the idiot? ETA. I have a job. I'm not worried about money, and he shouldn't be worried either, so I'm not sure why he's working so much overtime every single week. He brings home enough to cover all the bills in one paycheck with doing overtime in just 1 week. Adding my weekly paycheck of roughly $580, and we are set. The issue is that we can't find other housing. The reason I want to go to my mom's is that she has 3 extra bedrooms, and she has told us repeatedly to take them. She's lonely and wants us there. My dad passed last year and has all the extra space. But my husband doesn't want to be there because he doesn't want to live with anyone and be under anyone's thumb, despite the fact that him and his mother have been talking about us all buying a house together. So It's just an excuse he's giving me. This was not how it was in our last place. We had a male 5-bedroom apartment, so plenty of space, and we were there for 11 years. We didn't have neighbor kids banging on our door 24/7 or entertaining guests falling off on my shoulders. We had space. Now I have no space, and I'm constantly entertaining, schooling, and nursing a baby. So no, it wasn't like this before, and I can't handle the transition, but he can because his social life is better than it has been for years. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Tell him if his buddy is more important than his wife and kids, he can stay in this house. He insisted on living alone, and you can move to your mom's. Maybe show this post and explain where you are in his thought process. He knew you were having a newborn, that you have special needs children, the school issue, less room, and now, on top of that, the little time you have with him has to be unequally shared with the friend next door. Is he offering the love, respect, and intimacy you are? He might be his buddy, but right now the family needs family time. Comment 2. Not the idiot. But if one of his paychecks can cover all your bills and he is working that much overtime, he is either cheating on you or has money issues you are completely blind and deaf to, like gambling or Bitcoin or something. It is way past the time to leave. Take your kids, go to your mom's, and then call a therapist who specializes in PPD and PTSD because you are going through it. Now for the update. Hey everyone, back with an update, and oh boy, it's been a busy 3 days. First off, let me tell you about the heartbreak. It's been brewing for a while, but it hit hard these past few days. My husband and I had a massive fight. It was one of those confrontations where everything that's been bottled up just explodes. I've been feeling so alone, juggling the kids and the house, while he's been working those crazy hours. I get that he's trying to save money, but at what cost? So, 2 days ago, I reached my breaking point. After another day of his friends' kids causing chaos and my husband disappearing with his buddy, I just couldn't take it anymore. I told him we needed to talk. It was late, the kids were finally asleep, and I thought we could have a moment to ourselves. But no, his friend called, and off he went, leaving me standing there, feeling like I was about to shatter. When he came back, I was waiting. I told him how I felt, how I couldn't do this anymore, how I felt like I was losing my mind. He tried to brush it off, saying I was overreacting, but I wasn't having it. I reminded him of how different things were in our old place, how we had space and peace, and how I never signed up for this constant invasion of privacy. The argument escalated, and he said something that just broke me. He said he felt trapped, like he was working just to keep me happy, but nothing he did was ever enough. That's when I realized how disconnected we'd become. I thought back to the times when we dreamed together, plan our future, and it felt like a lifetime ago. Now, for some new developments. Yesterday, his friend's wife came over, uninvited as usual, and dropped a bombshell. She told me she overheard our fight and that my husband had been confiding in her husband about our issues. She said he felt overwhelmed by the responsibility and that he missed the freedom of our old life. I was floored. I couldn't believe he'd been talking to them about our private matters. But that wasn't all. She also let slip that my husband had been considering a job offer in another state. He hadn't mentioned a word to me about it. I confronted him when he got home, and he admitted it was true. He said he didn't want to stress me out more, but I was furious. How could he keep something so big from me? Today, things took an even more shocking turn. I found out that the reason we couldn't find other housing wasn't because there was nothing available. My husband had been turning down potential places because he didn't want to leave the area near his friend. I couldn't believe it. All this time, he'd been making excuses, and I'd been suffering because of it. I told him I was done. I couldn't live like this, feeling like a single parent while he prioritized his friend over our family. I reminded him of the times we'd supported each other, how we'd gotten through tough times before, but this was different. This was a betrayal of our partnership. He tried to apologize, to explain, but I was past listening. I packed a bag for me and the kids, and I told him I was going to my mom's. He begged me to stay, to work it out, but I couldn't even look at him. I was heartbroken, Not just because of what he'd done, but because I realized that the man I married, the one who used to put us first, was gone. So, here I am at my mom's, trying to figure out what comes next. The kids are confused and upset, and I'm just trying to keep it together for them. I never imagined it would come to this, but I have to think about what's best for us now. And right now, that means being away from the chaos and the broken promises. I went nuclear on my family for not understanding my struggle to accept my trans brother at my bachelorette. They called me unfair. But I, 26-year-old female, have a sibling, 22-year-old male, who was born with female genitalia and raised as my sister. After a lot of therapy, I have finally grieved the loss of my sister and accepted my brother for who he is and wants to be. The thing that, in my opinion, makes this a little weird and has been a big part of my therapy is that my brother still looks and dresses more like a tomboyish girl than an actual boy. He has expressed no interest in taking hormones or doing any surgeries. He just buzzed his hair short, shops in the men's section, and gives you the silent treatment for extended periods of time if you ever refer to him as she, her, or by his dead name. Well, I'm getting married and will soon be having a bridal shower as well as a bachelorette party. Last week, I was visiting my hometown and went to a family dinner with my dad, sister, and 2 brothers. One born as my brother, the other my transgender brother. At dinner, I was talking about how excited I was to start planning the bachelorette and bridal shower. My sister asked me who I'm going to invite and what kind of party I wanted to have. I said some friends as well as her, and then my brother says, "What about me?" There was this huge awkward silence, and then my other brother, trying to keep the peace, was like, "Aren't bachelorette parties just for women? The 3 of us will find something fun to do," meaning him, my dad, and my transgender brother. My transgender brother then looked at me and said, "What about the bridal shower?" And my brother says, "That's also for girls." I just kind of looked at him and took a sip of water. Then my transgender brother proceeded to get up from the table, saying he was finished, and went upstairs. We haven't spoken since. Am I really the jerk here? Isn't this what he wanted? Wouldn't it have been upsetting to him if I did invite him and then he would be like, "You're not respecting my gender identity. I need more therapy." I don't know. It's so hard to accept him when he does stuff like this, and I am truly trying my hardest. Update. So after seeing a lot of these comments, I called my brother this morning to try to break the silence and see where he was coming from. The first call he declined, so I texted him saying I wanted to talk about the bachelorette and bridal shower to see where he was coming from because I know he's upset. No response. I called 2 more times, and on the second time he answered. Before I could even open my mouth, he starts going into a big speech about how, like I've seen some people saying in the comments, it's 2024 and these events don't have to be gendered anymore. And I'm making an active choice not to include him by saying they're for women only, and that he just wanted to be able to celebrate me. And he's really hurt that I don't want that. I said it wasn't my intention to hurt him at all. And if he wants to come, I'm not going to bar him from doing that. But I'm also not going to open up the guest list and invite other men like my other brother, dad, etc., because it's my party, and for reasons completely unrelated to him, I would like it to be the traditional women's only style. He then asked why I would make an exception for him, but not my other brother. I said, well, my other brother doesn't want to come. He is not interested in a party for girls, but if you are, then just tell me, and I will be so happy to invite you. Then he said, that's not the reason, and hung up on me. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot, if anything, your soon-to-be husband can invite him to his bachelor party. He asked you to not consider or think of him as she, her, which a bachelorette is the female version of a bachelor. Your brother cannot have it both ways, even though he's transgender. Comment 2. Not the idiot. You are respecting his gender choices. He can't have it both ways, although it does sound like he's conflicted. Is he also having therapy or just you? Now, for the update. So, it's been a month since my last post, and boy, do I have an update for you all. After that phone call with my brother, things went from awkward to downright explosive. Remember how I mentioned my brother gives the silent treatment if you mess up his pronouns? Well, that's just the tip of the iceberg. He's always been the sensitive type, even before he came out as transgender. When we were kids, he'd lock himself in his room if he felt slighted in the smallest way. It's like walking on eggshells with him, and this whole wedding situation has been no different. A week after the hang-up, I thought things had cooled down. I was wrong. I was out with my fiancé, picking out invitations when I got a text from my brother. He said he'd been thinking and wanted to talk. I was relieved, thinking we could finally sort this out. We agreed to meet at our parents' house the next day. When I arrived, it was like stepping into a war zone. My brother was there, all right, but so was my sister and my other brother. They were all sitting in the living room, and the tension was thick. My brother started off by saying he felt excluded and marginalized by not being invited to the bridal shower and bachelorette party. He said it was an injustice to him, that I was treating him differently because of his gender identity. And I tried to explain that it wasn't about his gender, that I just wanted a traditional women-only event, but he wasn't having it. He said that by not inviting him, I was invalidating his identity as a man. That's when my sister chimed in, saying that I was being unfair and that I should just let him come. But here's the jaw-dropping part. My other brother, the one who had tried to keep the peace at dinner, suddenly turned on me too. He said that I was being selfish and that I should consider our brother's feelings more. I couldn't believe it. The one person I thought had my back was now against me. The argument escalated, voices were raised, and I felt like I was being ganged up on. My brother accused me of being trans unfriendly, which is the last thing I am. I've been to therapy, I've worked to accept him, and I've tried to be supportive. But it felt like no matter what I did, it was never enough. Then came the surprise no one saw coming. My brother revealed that he had been talking to our extended family about the situation. He had told them his side of the story, and now some of them were siding with him. They were calling me, texting me, telling me I was wrong for not including him. I was shocked. My own family was turning against me over this. The confrontation at our parents' house ended with no resolution. I left feeling more alone than ever. My fiancé has been supportive, but he's also confused about why this has blown up the way it has. He doesn't understand the family dynamics and how deep this goes. In the weeks that followed, things only got worse. My brother started a group chat with the family, excluding me, where he continued to discuss how hurt he was. I only know because my sister, feeling guilty, showed me the messages. It was like he was building a case against me, painting me as the villain in my own wedding story. I've been trying to focus on the wedding planning, but it's hard when your family is divided. I've had to block some of my relatives on social media because they keep posting passive-aggressive comments about inclusivity and acceptance. It's like they've forgotten all the years I spent trying to understand and support my brother. And the worst part? My brother still hasn't spoken to me directly since that day at our parents' house. It's like he's enjoying the drama and the attention it's bringing him. I'm at a loss. I want my brother at my wedding, but I also want to celebrate with my friends in the way I've always imagined. I refuse to include my son's kid in my will until a DNA test revealed a shocking truth that left us all questioning. I, 61-year-old man, have 2 children, Adam, 33 years old, and Sarah, 29 years old. This post is about my son, Adam. Adam got married 6 years ago to his wife, Jen. About 4 years ago, Adam and Jen separated because Jen cheated on him. She later told him she was pregnant and didn't know if the baby was his or not. Adam was planning on going through with the divorce and getting a paternity test when she gave birth. But he changed his mind when she gave birth. He decided he wanted to give her another chance and make their marriage work. He also decided not to get the paternity test because he thought it would create tension and resentment if he knew for certain that the child wasn't his. Let's call the child Billy. Their marriage has still been a shoot show since. They break up and get back together every other day. He considers Billy his own son sometimes, but other times he calls him Jen's son. They're very dysfunctional, and the entire family has told them to keep us out of their marriage. They would complain about everything to us when they had no intention of changing anything, so there's no point in them wasting our time with their constant complaints. Every year, I update my will. Not drastically, and sometimes I don't even change much at all. But I go over it with a lawyer and make changes if I want to. Adam knows this and randomly asked me a few days ago if I possibly added Billy to the will. I said I hadn't even considered it because I'm not sure if Billy is even my actual grandchild. Adam said any child he considers his son is automatically my grandchild. I said I don't agree with that under these circumstances. If he had met Jen when she already had a child and decided to be a father to the child, I would consider that child my grandchild if they got married. But Jen cheats on him, gets pregnant, and we don't even know if the child is my son's or not, and I'm meant to just roll with it? I said if he does a paternity test and finds out that Billy is actually his, I'll put him in the will. But right now I won't. I actually adore Billy, don't get me wrong, but I've seen him a handful of times in his entire life. He is mostly being raised by Jen's parents who live in another city. My son isn't really raising him, and neither is Jen. They send money to Jen's parents to take care of him and visit them a couple of times a year. With the addition of Adam and Jen's relationship being extremely unstable, with them breaking up every other day, I don't want to get involved in any way. And that includes adding a child I'm not even sure is my grandson to my will. I said I can contribute to his life financially in the form of paying for school and anything else he might need. But that's all I'm willing to do in this current situation. My son is very upset with me. I told him that I can remove part of his inheritance and make it Billy's inheritance if he insists, but he didn't want to make that compromise. So I told him that the discussion is over and he can't tell me what to do with my own assets. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. Why is this even an issue? If he intends to give part of his inheritance to the kid, then he can just do that himself. I would be more concerned with how to keep that from happening. Comment 2, not the idiot. It's your money. You can do as you like. Adam could give any portion of his inheritance to Billy of his own volition if he so chooses. He doesn't need you to codify it. Good luck. Now for the update. Hey everyone, back with an update on the situation with my son Adam, his wife Jen, and the whole will debacle. Things have taken some pretty unexpected turns in the past 3 days, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it all. So, after our last conversation, Adam was pretty mad at me for not automatically including Billy in my will. He's been stewing over it, and I guess he decided to take matters into his own hands. 2 days ago, he showed up at my house with a DNA test kit. He said he'd finally had enough of the uncertainty and wanted to know once and for all if Billy was his son. I was surprised, to say the least, because for years he'd been avoiding this very thing. Adam's always been the kind of guy who avoids conflict. Even as a kid, he'd rather give up his favorite toy than argue with his sister Sarah over it. So for him to take this step, I knew something must have changed. I didn't ask what it was because, honestly, I was just relieved he was taking action. The next day, Adam called me, and he was in tears. The results had come back already, and it turns out Billy is his biological son. I was happy for him because I knew part of him had always hoped for this outcome, but I also knew this was going to complicate things even more with Jen. They've been on and off so many times, I've lost count. But knowing Billy was his seemed to give Adam a new sense of purpose. He went straight over to Jen's parents' house, where Billy has been living, to talk to Jen. This is where things get really crazy. When he got there, he found out that Jen had been seeing the guy she originally cheated with again. Apparently, she'd been telling this guy that Billy was his son all along. I couldn't believe it when Adam told me. It was like a soap opera. Adam was furious, and there was a huge confrontation. Jen's parents were there, and they were just as shocked as Adam. They'd been under the impression that the whole paternity question had been resolved years ago. Jen broke down and admitted she'd been lying to everyone because she didn't want to lose the support from either man. Now here's the twist that I'm still trying to process. During the argument, Jen's mom let slip that Jen had actually been pregnant before she cheated on Adam. She'd had a miscarriage and never told Adam about it. Jen's mom said Jen had been so devastated by the loss that when she found out she was pregnant again, she panicked and made a series of bad decisions that led to the affair and the subsequent lies. Adam was heartbroken. He'd had no idea about the miscarriage, and it made him see the whole situation in a new light. He realized that while their marriage had been rocky, there were things he didn't know about Jen's struggles. He told me he felt guilty for not being there for her, even though he couldn't have known. Despite all this, Adam's still determined to be a father to Billy. He's talking about getting full custody now that he knows the truth. He's also been reflecting on his own role in their dysfunctional marriage. He's starting to see that he might have contributed to the instability by avoiding tough conversations and decisions. As for me, I'm still in shock. I never expected any of this to happen. I've been thinking about my own role as a father and wondering if I could have done something differently to help Adam navigate his relationship with Jen better. It's a lot to take in. And the last piece of news, which I'm still not sure how to feel about, is that Adam asked me to hold off on making any changes to my will. He said he needs time to figure things out with Jen and Billy, and he doesn't want to make any rash decisions about money or inheritance until they've settled into whatever their new normal is going to be. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.